Jake and Emily are a young couple who have been dating for 5 years. They have always considered their relationship to be strong, although recently small cracks have begun to appear in their lives. Routine work, lack of new emotions, and constant employment took their toll. Emily was more often unhappy with the little things, and Jake tried to solve it with gifts or evenings together, even though he was tired. One day, Emily came across a casting call for a popular reality show called Love or Survival. The format was simple. Couples must pass a series of physical, emotional, and psychological tests to prove their compatibility. The winners receive an impressive cash prize and, of course, fame. For Emily, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to spice up their relationship and get out of the routine. She decided to discuss it with Jake. A reality show? Jake raised a skeptical eyebrow when Emily told him about the idea. Emily enthusiastically explained that it would be fun and help them get closer. Besides, the cash prize would be a great bonus for their future. Although Jake was hesitant, he eventually agreed. For him, it was a way to prove to himself and Emily that their relationship was really strong. The casting was easy. They both impressed the producers, who immediately noticed their chemistry. A few weeks later, Jake and Emily were already among the 10 couples selected to appear on the show. They were looking forward to the new experience, not realizing that this adventure would change their lives. The reality show Love or Survival started with a bang. Jake and Emily, along with 9 other couples, arrived at the filming location, a remote camp in the mountains. The producers promised a combination of challenging physical tests and psychological tests, as well as unexpected challenges to strengthen or destroy relationships. The main prize of $250,000 made each couple hold on tight, but everyone realized that only the strongest would win. The very first day was a test. They were greeted by the host with a big smile, who immediately set strict rules. We are not just testing your love. We're going to push you to the limit physically, emotionally, and even morally. Victory requires not only strength, but also absolute trust in each other. Are you ready? Jake felt confident. He knew that he and Emily were a team and would overcome any difficulties together. Emily, on the other hand, was nervous, though she was careful to hide it. She was attracted to the idea of testing their relationship, but she was also afraid that the show might expose the weaknesses they had been carefully hiding. The show began with simple challenges: jumping over obstacles, team competitions, and trust exercises. For example, Jake had to trust Emily blindfolded as she showed him the way through a challenging obstacle course. He laughed as he stumbled, but her directions were spot on, and they finished first. "See? We're the best," said Jake happily, hugging Emily after the victory. But the next tasks began to heat up the atmosphere. One of them was for the participants to answer questions about their partners. The producers chose provocative topics. What annoys you the most about your partner? Or have you ever hidden something important from them? The questions: do you have any secrets that your partner doesn't know about? Emily hesitated at first, but answered, "No, everything is honest." Jake liked her answer, but the cameras captured a slight tremor in her voice, which the audience noticed. A few days later, the producers decided to complicate the task. The couples had to be temporarily separated. Jake and a few other men were sent to an isolated camp where they had to perform tough physical challenges, build shelters, cover distances off-road, and even forage for food. Emily stayed in the main camp with the other women. Their task was to solve psychological puzzles, but most importantly, to interact socially. Relationships between the participants were becoming increasingly tense. At this time, Matt, one of the men who had attracted Emily's attention at the beginning of the show, began to show more interest in her. He was confident, charismatic, and made jokes that made Emily smile. At first, she kept her distance, but gradually her defenses weakened. One evening, while everyone was relaxing around the campfire, Matt sat down next to her and started a conversation about how difficult it is to balance dreams and reality in a relationship. His words made Emily think, and she began to open up to him. "You're a real fighter," he said, looking into her eyes. Not everyone could have gone through all this with such dignity. Emily felt mixed emotions. She knew that Jake trusted her, but the attention from Matt brought back feelings she hadn't experienced in a long time. When Jake returned to the main camp after several days of isolation, he noticed that Emily had changed. She was less warm and avoided their usual conversations. When he tried to ask her if she was okay, she brushed him off. "I'm just tired from the ordeal." Other participants began to make subtle hints. Someone said that Emily and Matt had spent a lot of time together while he was away. Jake laughed back because he didn't want to believe it. Emily would never cheat on me, he thought. But doubts began to creep into his mind. The producers noticed the tension and decided to escalate the situation. The next challenge was a game where each couple had to honestly answer questions about their relationship posed by the other participants. One of the questions asked to Jake was, "What would you do if you found out that Emily cheated on you?" Jake answered without hesitation, "It would ruin everything. I wouldn't be able to forgive." He sounded firm, but he didn't notice how embarrassed Emily was to hear him say that. Meanwhile, the producers were preparing a special final stage for the next part of the show, the test of betrayal. Emily felt that her secret might be revealed. Matt continued to seek her attention, and every interaction they had could be the cause of the destruction of what she had built with Jake over the years. Emily realized that she was trapped by her actions, but she didn't know how to find a way out. Her fear and guilt only increased when Jake, unsuspectingly, held her hand and said, "We will get to the end together. I'm sure of it." The show's finale was getting closer and closer, and the atmosphere between the participants was becoming more and more tense. The producers decided to complicate the task by provoking conflicts between the couples. At the same time, they were preparing a big final challenge that would reveal the hidden aspects of the participants' relationships. Jake remained confident in his abilities and in his pairing with Emily. He believed that together they had overcome all the difficulties and become stronger. Emily, on the other hand, was losing her cool more and more. The guilt of her moment of weakness with Matt weighed heavily on her, but she was afraid to admit it. One of the stages forced the pairs to be separated again. Jake had to perform physical survival tasks, while Emily had to cooperate with the other contestants. The producers deliberately put her on the same team as Matt, knowing that it would create tension. Emily tried to keep her distance, but Matt was constantly looking for opportunities to be close. This situation did not go unnoticed by the other participants, who began discussing her behavior behind her back. The rumors quickly reached Jake when one of the men in his group hinted that Emily was too close to Matt. Jake brushed it off at first, calling it an attempt to sow doubt, but the words stuck in his head. When he returned to camp after completing his assignment, Jake felt a change in attitude. The other campers were acting wary, and Emily seemed distracted. Her tension was visible, and Jake began to feel that something was wrong. The producers announced the final task, which they called the betrayal test. They explained that this would be the most serious test for the couples, which would test the trust and honesty of the partners. Each couple had to undergo an individual test, during which they would be shown moments from the filming that had not been broadcast before. For Jake, it was an opportunity to confirm that his relationship with Emily was the strongest. He didn't even realize that he might see something different. Emily, on the other hand, was in a panic. She didn't know what kind of footage the producers had chosen, but she guessed that her interaction with Matt might be among them. When their time came, Jake and Emily sat down together in the screening room. First, their moments together appeared on the screen. Laughter, successful tasks, and support for each other. Jake smiled as he recalled how well they worked as a team. But suddenly the tone of the video changed. The camera showed Emily and Matt sitting too close to the fire. Her face was confused, but she didn't push him away when he touched her arm. Jake froze. He couldn't believe his eyes at first. The next shot showed Matt and Emily talking in private, and then he leaned toward her. The video cut off, leaving an obvious hint of what had happened. Emily couldn't bear to look at him. The silence in the room became unbearable. Jake stood up without a word and left the room. His world collapsed at that moment. Everything he had built with Emily now seemed like a lie. This moment was a turning point. Jake decided to leave the show without even waiting for the finale. Emily was left alone, facing judgment from the other contestants and her own guilt. The producers achieved their goal. Their project took a dramatic turn, but at the cost of destroyed relationships. Jake left the show not only with a broken heart, but also with a new realization. Trust is the foundation of everything. And once it's destroyed, it's impossible to restore. After Jake left the room, Emily was left alone with the burden of her actions. She didn't know what to do next. Try to find Jake and explain, or just accept that their relationship was over. Her anxiety was growing by the minute. Outside the door, she could hear the cautious conversations of the producers filming her every move, but she couldn't concentrate. All that remained in her mind was the footage of the video that showed the truth. Jake, meanwhile, was wandering around the set. His mind was filled with rage and frustration. He couldn't believe that Emily, the person he trusted most in the world, had betrayed him at the worst possible moment. To make matters worse, it happened in front of millions of viewers. His world fell apart. Only one word was running through his head. How could she do this to me? He decided to go to the producers and tell them that he was leaving the show. He had no energy or desire to participate in this farce. It was important for Jake to keep at least some of his dignity. The producers tried to convince him to stay, saying that the finale was close and his participation would be decisive. But he was adamant. "This is not a show, this is my life. And you ruined it," he said before leaving. These words were not just a release for him, but the final blow to the whole situation. Emily remained in the camp under the scrutiny of the other participants. They no longer saw her as the confident and friendly girl she had been at the beginning. Rumors spread quickly, and everyone knew what had happened. Matt, realizing that he had caused the conflict, kept to himself, avoiding talking to Emily. For her, the show's finale turned into a nightmare. She realized that she had lost Jake forever. Her behavior now seemed selfish and unreasonable. She was no longer fighting for a prize or the attention of the cameras. All she wanted was to at least try to apologize to Jake. In the final stage, the participants gathered together to summarize the results. Each couple talked about their experiences and how the challenges affected their relationship. Jake was not among those present. The host announced that he had decided to leave the show, and this sparked a wave of discussion among the audience. When it was Emily's turn, she could barely hold back her tears. She admitted that she had made a mistake that cost her trust and her relationship with Jake. "I am guilty, and I just have to live with it," she said, looking down. Her words provoked a mixed reaction. Some sympathized, some condemned. After returning home, Jake tried to find a new meaning in his life. At first, it was difficult. The media attention and questions from his friends constantly reminded him of his pain. But over time, he began to rebuild his life. He returned to work, socialized more with friends and family who supported him. In an interview, he said, "This experience taught me that trust is the most precious thing in a relationship. And if it is destroyed, it is impossible to restore. But it was also a lesson for me. I am stronger than I thought." For Emily, life after the show was a tough challenge. She lost not only Jake, but also the respect of the audience. Her social media was flooded with criticizing comments, and she was forced to close her profiles for a while. She tried to find peace by seeking therapy and admitted that she had made a huge mistake. I betrayed not only Jake, but also myself. Now I have to live with it, she said in her only interview after the show. Jake and Emily never met again. They each went their separate ways, but their experience was a lesson for both of them. For Jake, it was about finding the strength to move on after a betrayal. For Emily, it was about how important it is to value trust while it lasts.